My name is Chloe Miller and I have died once. During my junior year, Braden Foster led a group of bullies, who tormented me for 2 years. My best friend, Sienna Hill, stole my private diary, photocopied it, and scattered the pages like flyers across the entire school. Our homeroom teacher, Mrs. Gable, simply said, "It takes 2 to tango, Chloe. You should reflect on your own behavior." By the time the SATs rolled around, my mind was filled with the images of those flyers plastered in the hallways. My hands shook so hard I couldn't even hold my pen. I failed my exams, my life collapsed, and I died of stomach cancer at 28. When it was diagnosed, it was already terminal. I didn't even have enough money for treatment. As I lay on a gurney in the hospital hallway, I had only one thought: if only I could do it all over again. Then I woke up. My pillow was soaked with tears. When I was woken up by the sound of my own sobbing. When I opened my eyes, I didn't see the white ceiling of the hospital. Instead, I saw the dusty chandelier in my childhood bedroom. The junior year class schedule was still taped to the wall, and my unfinished summer homework was scattered across the desk. Outside, the cicadas were buzzing loudly in the August heat. I froze for a full 10 seconds. Then I lunged for my phone. The date on the screen made my hands tremble. August 30th, 2022. The night before the first day of senior year. I threw off the covers and rushed to the mirror. It was a 17-year-old face. No sickly yellow tint from chemo, no sunken eyes, no gray shadow of death. It was me, 17, alive, and everything had yet to happen. I collapsed onto the bathroom floor, hugging my knees, and cried like a wounded animal. Every memory of my past life replayed in my head like a horror movie. On the first day of junior year, I brought a physics bridge model I'd spent all summer building to class. Braden Foster walked past my desk and accidentally knocked it to the floor, crushing it under his boot. The whole class laughed. As I knelt to pick up the pieces, he sneered, "Garbage made by a loser is always fragile." Sienna Hill whispered next to me, "Ignore him, he's just being a jerk." But after school, she screenshotted my private Instagram posts and sent them to Braden. Those posts were filled with my secret crush on the class president. The next day, the hallways were covered in flyers. The headline read, "Chloe Miller's Mental Health Report, Chronic Thirst Syndrome." Every line was a direct quote from my diary. It was signed, shared by Sienna Hill. I confronted her in the classroom. She cried in front of everyone saying, "I didn't know, my account was hacked. Chloe, you have to believe me." Braden stood by, clapping and laughing. He started the applause and the whole class followed. That applause lasted for 2 years. 2 years later, sitting in the SAT hall, I tried to write my essay. Every word I formed was shaky. The proctor thought I had low blood sugar, and brought me a cup of water. That cup of water was the only kindness I felt during my entire senior year. At 28, I had terminal cancer. The doctor said the chronic stress had destroyed my immune system. My mother collapsed outside the ward. Everything ended in pain. But now I was awake. I stood up from the bathroom floor and turned on the faucet. I splashed cold water on my face. The girl in the mirror had swollen eyes, but her gaze was different now. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. I created a blank document. Title, First Day of School, Collecting Every Debt. I made a list underneath. 1. Physics model presentation tomorrow. Braden will try to crush it. Response, hide a backup in the lab. Bring the teacher directly there to see it. Record everything on my phone. 2. Sienna will ask me to the rooftop after school to talk. Braden's gang will be waiting. Response, don't go. Announce in front of everyone. If anyone touches me again, I'll make sure they lose their college eligibility. 3. Mrs. Gable favors Braden because his family donated a wing to the school. Response. Document every instance of bias. If she protects him, report her directly to the Board of Education. For pages of notes. In my past life, it took me years to learn how to fight back. This time, the school year hasn't even started, and I'm already done taking their crap. 2. The air in the homeroom was exactly as I remembered. Stuffy, noisy, and thick with tension. 3. During the first period, Mr. Lewis asked our lab groups to present our summer projects. I carried my model toward the front of the room. Braden sat in the 4th row, stretching his long legs into the aisle. It was happening exactly like before. I stopped and looked at him. Braden, your legs are blocking the aisle. Move them. He arched an eyebrow, his lips curling into that familiar smirk. It was a look of pure contempt. He was certain I wouldn't do a thing. Whoa, Chloe, you should learn to look where you're walking. The class went silent for a beat. Then someone snickered. Soon the room was filled with the same laughter I heard when I was picking up shards in my past life. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and spoke clearly into the mic. August 30th, 2022, 2:08 p.m. Physics class. Braden Foster is intentionally obstructing the aisle to interfere with my presentation. I'm asking one more time, Braden, move your legs. The laughter died instantly. Braden's expression shifted. He wasn't scared, just caught off guard. When someone who never fights back suddenly bites, it rattles the bully. What the hell are you recording? He stood up, his voice rising. Recording the facts, I said, meeting his eyes. Move your legs, yes or no? No one spoke. Sienna's eyes were wide, her mouth hanging open. Mr. Lewis cleared his throat from the podium. Braden, sit down and stop disrupting the class. He pulled his legs back. He didn't want to, but he had no excuse to stay in my way. After the presentation, I went back to my seat. Sienna leaned in and whispered, "You were so brave today, Chloe. I was so nervous for you." I just smiled at her. An hour before school ended, it was time for the campus cleanup. Sienna pretended to have a stomach ache and asked me to cover her shift. In my past life, I agreed. While I was cleaning windows, she brought Braden into the room to show him disgusting things she claimed were on my social media. This time I didn't help her. I grabbed my backpack and stood in front of her. I spoke loud enough for the surrounding rows to hear. "Sienna, about that screenshot on your phone. Where did you send it?" Her face turned white in a split second. All the blood drained from her cheeks. "What screenshot? Chloe, what are you talking about?" "The screenshot of my private posts. The ones about my crush. You accessed my account this morning. Who did you send them to?" My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. She looked like someone had hit the pause button on her life. "I didn't." "You did." Every eye in the room was on her. I turned my phone screen toward her. It wasn't the screenshot, but my login history. She had accessed my private profile at 10:23 a.m. In my past life, she deleted the history, but I had set up an automatic backup this morning. "You logged into my private account to steal my diary entries. The time is recorded down to the second. Who did you send it to?" She stammered, unable to form a sentence. I adjusted my backpack and walked to the door. Then I turned back to look at her and her little group of followers. "If you want to know about my private life, ask me directly. Stop acting like a coward behind my back." Then I walked out. In the hallway, I could hear Sienna starting to sob. "I don't know why she's saying this. You have to believe me. In my past life, I would have run back to comfort her. I was so stupid back then." 3. By the third day, the drama had reached a boiling point. Sienna's clique began to collectively ice me out. No one in the classroom would speak to me. It wasn't just cold shoulders. It was that gross kind of bullying where they'd stop talking the moment I walked by, then burst into laughter once I was out of range. But that wasn't the worst of it. Braden hadn't moved since I recorded him in physics. He wasn't backing down, he was brewing something bigger. Friday afternoon during study hall, a row of guys suddenly lined up in the hallway. Braden was at the front with 6 others behind him. He slammed a crumpled flyer onto my desk. "Everyone knows now, Chloe. You spent the summer at cheap motels with random guys. We even have the security footage photos. Take a look." I smoothed out the flyer. My face had been photoshopped onto a low-quality security camera still from a hotel lobby I'd never visited. The guy next to me was a complete stranger. The caption read, "Chloe Miller's Wild and Trashy Summer Vacation." The classroom erupted in a massive roar of laughter. In my past life, this was the moment I broke. I had tried to grab the flyers, crying and begging him to stop. He had his friends hold me down while they plastered the hallways with them. Standing at the end of that hallway, looking at those distorted versions of my face, something inside me had shattered forever. This time, I looked at the flyer and placed it flat on my desk. Then I pulled out my phone. You are being recorded. The 4 p.m. classroom suddenly became as quiet as a vacuum. Braden. Using software to create fake, defamatory images of another student is a violation of the school's code of conduct and state law. It falls under cyber harassment and defamation of character. Keep going. Give me more evidence. His face turned a sickly shade of purple. Also, I opened a folder on my desk. It contained records of students he had bullied over the last 2 years. Names, dates, locations, and witnesses. Last year, you sent a kid named Derek to the ER with a broken arm. The school hushed it up. I wonder what happens if I upload this entire file to the district's public forum. He stopped laughing. The 6 guys behind him started looking at their feet. Bullies don't fear their victims. They fear witnesses. Every one of them realized they could be dragged down with him. But I won't upload it yet, I said, closing the folder. Because you people are nothing to me. You think you're tough because you harass girls in hallways and vandalize lockers. You think you're powerful. But what you do is what toddlers do in a sandbox. Except toddlers get put in timeout for stealing toys. You're 17, and you don't even have the courage to stand on your own. You're pathetic, bored, and useless. I said it all in one breath. I didn't feel angry. I felt incredibly calm. I sat back down and opened my math textbook. Chapter 4. The First Crack. By Monday morning, the entire school had seen the video. Not because I posted it. Because Braden had. In his rage after the study hall incident, he'd recorded his own version of events and sent it to half the school hoping to humiliate me. Unfortunately for him, the video showed something else. It showed him distributing fake flyers. It showed his friends laughing. It showed me calmly explaining that what he was doing was harassment. The comments under the video weren't going the way he expected. Bro literally admitted it. Why would he post this? This makes Braden look insane. Wait, wasn't Derek really sent to the ER? Rumors spread faster than wildfire. By lunch, students were talking openly. Not about me. About him. For the first time in years, Braden Foster wasn't controlling the narrative. And he hated it. I found that out when he cornered me behind the gym after school. Not alone. 5 guys stood behind him. The same 5 from my first life. The same 5 who laughed while my locker was vandalized. The same 5 who watched while my diary pages covered the hallways. Braden crossed his arms. You think you're funny? No. You think you've won? No. His expression twitched. That wasn't the answer he expected. I looked him directly in the eyes. I think you're predictable. His face darkened. One of the boys stepped forward. You got a problem? I held up my phone. Audio recording started 3 minutes ago. The boy immediately stepped back. I almost laughed. Cowards. Every single one of them. Braden pointed at me. You've changed. Yeah. You used to cry. And you used to get away with things. Neither of us looked away. Finally he sneered. This isn't over. I know. Then I walked around him. He didn't stop me. Because for all his threats, he understood something now. I wasn't alone anymore. The truth was standing beside me. And the truth leaves fingerprints. Chapter 5. Sienna's mask starts cracking. The first person to abandon Sienna wasn't me. It was her own friend group. Once people started questioning Braden, they started questioning her too. Little things began surfacing. Screenshots. Messages. Old conversations. Students comparing stories. A pattern emerged. Every time someone got targeted, Sienna somehow knew beforehand. Every time a rumor spread, she'd been nearby. Every time private information leaked, she'd had access. The realization hit people slowly. Then all at once. She wasn't innocent. She never had been. The confrontation happened during lunch. I was sitting outside under a tree when shouting erupted near the cafeteria doors. Students gathered immediately. Sienna stood in the middle of the crowd. Across from her was a girl named Natalie. Natalie's eyes were red. You told everyone about my anxiety attacks. I didn't. Stop lying. Natalie shoved her phone forward. The screenshots were visible from several feet away. Messages. Sienna's messages. Mocking Natalie. Sharing private information. Laughing about it. The crowd went silent. Sienna looked around desperately. Nobody rushed to defend her. Nobody. Because everyone was starting to realize they might have been next. Or they already had been. For years she'd hidden behind tears and excuses. Now those excuses weren't working anymore. Her gaze found mine across the courtyard. For a moment she looked almost relieved. Like she expected me to help. Like old Chloe would step in. I looked away. She was on her own. Exactly where she'd left me. Chapter 6, Mrs. Gable's Nightmare. The district investigation started quietly. An email. A few interviews. A request for records. Then things escalated. Fast. Because I wasn't the only student keeping evidence. I was just the first one willing to submit it. Once word spread, more students came forward. Then more. Then more. Files started piling up. Reports. Screenshots. Medical records. Parent complaints. Witness statements. Years of complaints. Years of warnings. Years of Mrs. Gable looking the other way. One Thursday morning she walked into homeroom looking exhausted. The room immediately fell silent. Gone was the confident teacher who always dismissed complaints with a smile. Now she looked scared. Halfway through attendance, a man in a suit entered the classroom. Two more followed behind him. The district investigators. Mrs. Gable. The lead investigator smiled politely. We need a word. The color drained from her face. The entire class watched her leave. She never came back. 3 days later her administrative leave was announced. 2 weeks after that, parents started demanding termination. By November, lawyers were involved. And every new piece of evidence made the situation worse. Not better. Chapter 7. The Scholarship Committee. Braden's biggest source of pride wasn't football. It wasn't popularity. It wasn't being feared. It was college. For years he'd bragged about his scholarship offers. His future. His guaranteed success. Then the committee requested a meeting. The first rumor said they wanted clarification. The second rumor said they wanted documentation. The third rumor said they were reconsidering. The fourth rumor wasn't a rumor. One of the offers was officially withdrawn. Then another. Then another. By December, half of them were gone. Students whispered every time he walked by. Teachers avoided eye contact. Recruiters stopped calling. One afternoon I saw him sitting alone in the parking lot. No entourage. No audience. No followers. Just him. For the first time since I'd known him he looked ordinary. Not powerful. Not dangerous. Just a 17-year-old boy facing consequences. He looked up and saw me. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he laughed. It sounded broken. You happy now? I considered the question. Carefully. Then answered honestly. No. His eyebrows lifted. No. I don't think about you enough to be happy or unhappy. The truth hit harder than any insult. I watched it happen. His shoulders slumped. Because after years of making my life revolve around him, his biggest fear had come true. He no longer mattered. And I walked away before he could say another word. Chapter 8. The truth about the diary. December arrived with freezing winds and early sunsets. The scandal had already consumed the school. Braden's scholarship offers were disappearing one by one. Mrs. Gable was under investigation. Students who once laughed at me now avoided eye contact. Everything was changing. But one thing still hadn't happened. Sienna had never admitted the truth. Not really. Not publicly. Not completely. And I was tired of waiting. The opportunity arrived 3 days before winter break. The district investigators requested another round of interviews. This time they wanted testimony regarding cyberbullying incidents. Including the diary. Including Sienna. I walked into the conference room carrying a binder. The same binder that had become my weapon. The investigators sat at one side of the table. The principal sat at the other. Sienna entered 5 minutes later. The second she saw me, she froze. Then her eyes landed on the binder. Her face went pale. The lead investigator folded his hands. Miss Hill. Sienna swallowed. Yes. We have reviewed your previous statements. She nodded nervously. You stated that your account was hacked and used to distribute private information belonging to Chloe Miller. That's correct. The investigator opened a folder. What if we told you we have evidence that statement is false? The room became very quiet. Sienna's hands started shaking. I recognized the look immediately. It was the look of someone realizing their lies were finally running out of road. The investigator slid several pages across the table. Login records, IP addresses, timestamps, device information, everything. The records showed her phone, her laptop, her home internet connection. Every single action traced directly back to her. The investigator spoke calmly. Would you like to revise your statement? Sienna stared at the papers. Her eyes filled with tears. No one said anything. A full minute passed. Then another. Finally she broke. Yes. Her voice was barely audible. The investigator leaned forward. Please explain what happened. The first sob escaped before she could stop it. I copied the diary. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. I took pictures. More tears. I sent them to Braden. The room remained silent. He thought it was funny. The words spilled out faster now. At first I thought it would just be a joke. I laughed. Actually laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. Sienna flinched. A joke? I asked. She couldn't look at me. I was jealous. There it was. The truth. The real truth. Not the fake excuses. Not the crocodile tears. The truth. I hated how everyone liked you. My expression didn't change. You mean nobody liked me? No. She shook her head violently. You don't understand. Her voice cracked. Teachers liked you. The room went still. You always got better grades. Another tear rolled down her cheek. My parents compared me to you. More tears. Everyone said you were smarter than me. She covered her face. I hated it. The confession continued for nearly an hour. Every ugly detail. Every betrayal. Every lie. Every choice. And through all of it I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Because the girl sitting across from me wasn't my best friend. My best friend had never existed. She had been imaginary. A character I'd created in my head. The real Sienna had been sitting beside me for years. And I'd never known her at all. Chapter 9. Public collapse. The confession leaked. Nobody knew who leaked it. Nobody cared. Within 48 hours, the entire school knew. Every student. Every parent. Every teacher. The story spread beyond the district. Local news picked it up. Then state media. The headline was everywhere. Top student targeted in years-long bullying campaign. Parents were furious. Especially because the school had ignored it. The district scheduled a public board meeting. Hundreds attended. People lined the walls. Some stood in the hallway. Others watched online. I sat beside my mother. Across the room sat Sienna and her parents. They looked miserable. Braden's family sat near the front. His father looked furious. His mother looked exhausted. The meeting lasted almost 4 hours. Former students testified. Parents testified. Teachers testified. Then it was my turn. The room became silent as I approached the microphone. The board president smiled gently. Whenever you're ready. I looked around. Hundreds of faces. Watching. Waiting. In my first life this would have terrified me. Now it didn't. Because fear had already taken enough from me. I took a breath. Then spoke. For 2 years I thought there was something wrong with me. The room was silent. I thought if I worked harder people would stop hurting me. A few people lowered their eyes. I thought if I ignored it would go away. My mother squeezed my hand. It didn't. I told them everything. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just facts. The destroyed projects. The flyers. The harassment. The teachers who looked away. The panic attacks. The SAT exam. The damage. The years lost. By the time I finished, several parents were crying. The board president looked shaken. One member removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. When I returned to my seat, the entire room stood. Applause erupted. Not the cruel applause from my first life. Not mockery. Not humiliation. Respect. For a moment I couldn't breathe, because I'd spent years believing nobody would ever listen. And now they were. Chapter 10: Braden's last move. The board meeting destroyed him. Completely. By January, Braden was a ghost. Students avoided him. Colleges stopped contacting him. Teachers monitored him constantly. His friends abandoned him. Even his football teammates kept their distance. But people like Braden rarely go quietly. They always want one last shot. I should have known. The confrontation happened after school. The parking lot was nearly empty. I was loading books into my car when I heard footsteps. I turned around. Braden. Alone. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he laughed bitterly. You ruined everything. I closed my trunk. No. His jaw tightened. Don't. No. I stepped forward. You ruined everything. Silence. You spent years hurting people because you thought there would never be consequences. His fists clenched. You think you're better than me? No. The answer surprised him. I think I made different choices. His face twisted. You wanted revenge. I considered that. Maybe once. Maybe in the hospital. Maybe while dying. But now? No. I looked him directly in the eyes. I wanted my life back. For the first time since I'd known him, Braden had nothing to say. No clever insult. No threat. No comeback. Nothing. Because deep down he knew it was true. I hadn't destroyed him. I had simply stopped protecting him from himself. And those were very different things. He stood there for several seconds. Then turned around. And walked away. I never saw him again. Chapter 11. The one thing I couldn't predict. I thought that was the end. Braden was gone. Sienna was exposed. Mrs. Gable's career was hanging by a thread. The school district was scrambling to save face. Everything that had haunted my first life was finally collapsing. So why did I still feel uneasy? The answer arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was sorting through old files on my laptop when I found something strange. A folder. One I didn't remember creating. Its name was simple. Archive. My stomach tightened. I clicked it. Inside were hundreds of screenshots. Messages. Photos. Emails. Most of them were familiar. Evidence I'd gathered over the last few months. But then I noticed something. A timestamp. August 15, 2022. 2 weeks before school started. Before Sienna had stolen anything. Before Braden had distributed flyers. Before any of it. I opened the file. My breath caught. It was a conversation. Between Braden and someone else. The contact name wasn't saved. But I recognized the number immediately. Sienna. The messages made my blood run cold. Sienna. She's still writing in that diary. Braden. Sienna. I can get more pages. Braden, do it. Sienna. What do I get? Braden. Depends how funny they are. My hand tightened around the mouse. I kept scrolling. The conversation continued for months. Not weeks. Months. And every message revealed something horrifying. The diary wasn't spontaneous. The flyers weren't impulsive. The bullying campaign wasn't random. They planned it. Together. From the beginning. Every step. Every humiliation. Every public embarrassment. Every rumor. Every fake apology. Every tear. Everything. My chest felt hollow. Because even after everything I'd uncovered, I had still underestimated them. In my first life, I believed Sienna eventually got manipulated by Braden. That she'd made terrible choices. That she'd followed the wrong person. But the messages showed something different. She wasn't following him. She was helping him. Enthusiastically. Sometimes she was the one suggesting ideas. I stared at the screen for a very long time. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. I had spent years wondering what I'd done wrong. Years trying to figure out why my best friend betrayed me. The answer was sitting in front of me. I hadn't done anything. She simply wanted to. The next morning I emailed the entire archive to the district investigators. Every message. Every screenshot. Every backup. Then I went to school. By lunchtime, chaos had erupted. Again. Students were passing screenshots around like wildfire. People were horrified, because Sienna's confession had made her look weak. The messages made her look cruel, deliberate, calculated. There was no misunderstanding, no jealousy excuse, no emotional breakdown, just choice after choice after choice. By the end of the day, students who still felt sorry for her didn't anymore. The sympathy vanished overnight. And honestly, I didn't feel guilty. The truth belonged to everyone she'd lied to. Chapter 12. The lawsuit. The district thought the nightmare was ending. My mother disagreed. Strongly. I found out over dinner. She calmly placed a stack of papers on the table. Legal documents. I blinked. What is this? My mother took a sip of tea. A lawsuit. I nearly choked. What? A very large lawsuit. For a moment I just stared. Then she smiled. A terrifying smile. The kind mothers develop when someone hurts their child. I spent years blaming myself. Her voice was quiet. I thought I missed warning signs. I didn't interrupt. I thought I failed you. She looked down at the papers. But I didn't fail you. Her eyes hardened. They did. Something inside my chest tightened. Because in my first life, Mom had spent years exhausted, working overtime, trying to keep us afloat, trying to help me, trying to survive. She never got justice either. Now she was fighting. For both of us. The lawsuit named the school district, several administrators, Mrs. Gable, and the families of the students directly involved. The media exploded. Again. Parents demanded answers. Former students started sharing their own stories. Within weeks, the district's attorneys were begging for settlement discussions. The amount being discussed made headlines. Millions. Actual millions. For years the district ignored victims because silence was cheaper. Now silence was becoming expensive. Chapter 13. Acceptance letter. March arrived. Then April. Then college decisions. The thing that terrified me most wasn't the lawsuit. Or Braden. Or Sienna. It was this. Because in my first life, this was where everything fell apart. The SAT. The applications. The future. I sat at my desk staring at the email. My hands were shaking. Mom sat beside me. Neither of us spoke. Finally she nudged my shoulder. Open it. I laughed nervously. You do it. Nope. Please. Nope. I groaned. Then clicked. The email opened. For a second my brain refused to process the words. Then they finally registered. Congratulations. I froze. Mom froze. Then we both started crying. Not graceful crying. Ugly crying. The kind that makes it impossible to breathe. I had gotten in. Not just accepted. Accepted with a scholarship. A full scholarship. Everything I'd lost in my first life had been returned. Not because fate owed me. Not because the universe felt sorry for me. Because I earned it. This time nobody stole it. Nobody ruined it. Nobody took it away. That night, after Mom finally fell asleep, I stepped outside. The air was cool. The neighborhood was quiet. I looked up at the stars. And for the first time since waking up in the past, I thought about my first life. The hospital. The cancer. The fear. The loneliness. The woman dying in a hallway because she couldn't afford treatment. For a long moment, I stood there silently. Then I whispered into the darkness. I made it. The wind moved through the trees. Soft and gentle. Almost like an answer. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly believed the future belonged to me.